Hi, this is John Ondo from Marketing Media and Cupcakes. And before we get into today's episode, I just want to say thank you so much for listening. We're back after being gone for over 4.5 years. And I hope you get a chance to listen to episode 77, where we explain why we were gone for so long and that we're back for at least 3 more episodes. Angel and I are big supporters of entrepreneurship, and we love small businesses and faith-based businesses. And we just want to encourage you through our podcast each week. What's going to determine if we continue with more episodes will be the response. Subscribe to us on your platform. Send us an email at john@ondomedia.com. That would help us know you're listening and you want more episodes. So thank you so much, and let's get into today's episode. My mentor, who was the first person who hired me in broadcasting, Ron Mile, and he said this to the infinitum: there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. And that is so true, because you had to give up something to make that $1 million. And maybe you were blessed, but, it dropped in your lap. That's great. But most people I know, that's not how it worked. And so our podcast, we're just being real with you today. And I know other podcasts I've listened to recently, I've heard a lot of people say this. Let's be real, let's be transparent, and let's talk about business.
This is the small business podcast that is sweeter than all the rest. Marketing, media, and cupcakes.
This is episode 11 of Marketing, Media, and Cupcakes. Hi, I'm John, and along with me, my wife, Angel.
Hi there.
Who is the fabulous cupcake queen in our household. She looking at me like, huh? And I have a full-time business that is media production, and we do consulting and all kinds of fun stuff. So we have 2 businesses, and they're small, and they're at times wonderful and glorious, and at times extremely frustrating. But I thought we're going to talk about some of those items today and give, I think, for those of you who are in a small business and maybe you're frustrated a little bit, or maybe you're getting ready to start a small business and you're not really sure what the next step is. We'll give you some ideas. But first, I'm going to let Angel give us a baking tip of the week. And I don't even know what this one's going to be, so I'm kind of curious.
So for those of you who do baking, and so, for example, baking doesn't necessarily have to mean just cupcakes or cakes. So if you ever like a good pancake recipe...
And who doesn't?
And it calls for buttermilk, but if you're not a baker, why would you have buttermilk in your refrigerator? You typically do not. So if you take your regular milk, and I've even done it with skim milk, 1%. If you've got 2%, great. Even whole milk it'll work with as well. You just add a teaspoon, I do believe, of either vinegar or lemon juice to your cup of milk. Stir it in and let it sit for a few minutes, and it basically curdles the milk and makes it behave or act like buttermilk. So it's a very quick substitute, if you will. Always works fantastically in pancakes. I do it all the time in my red velvet if I happen to not buy buttermilk, and I should have. I will go to the pantry and get vinegar. And it's surprising. You say lemon juice or vinegar, you think, oh, it's going to taste like either one of those. It does not. It just literally gives that tang you're looking for that buttermilk can provide.
Well, let's be honest. Buttermilk doesn't taste great to begin with. So.
Well, nobody should drink it. That's for sure.
And the other, I guess, here's my tip. If you also are, if you don't have the lemon or the other ingredients you mentioned, if you have a single guy near you, odds are he's got milk that's spoiled in his refrigerator. And,
well, I wouldn't use that.
Oh, you're not allowed to use that?
No, spoiled milk is not something you should use.
I wonder how the chemistry works that you could put lemon and what was the other ingredient?
Lemon or vinegar.
Or vinegar.
Yeah, not both, just one or the other.
And it makes it taste terrible and curdle. But
it just curdles it. It's just you're looking for that tang. That's what buttermilk does.
And not tang itself.
Not tang itself.
Okay. Well, okay.
No, because that would then be orange, and that's only for the astronauts.
Did you ever just eat tang with a spoon?
Never.
Oh my gosh.
Tang was for the rich people. We never had tang in my house.
Well, we were certainly not rich, but I do remember eating tang with a spoon. It was kind of like the precursor to cosmic candy.
I was just going to say, it sounds like a pixie stick gone wrong.
That sounds so good.
Gross.
Well, what we're talking about today on Marketing, Media, and Cupcakes, we want to talk about, and we want to be kind of transparent here about what's going on and what's happening in your business or maybe the business you want to start. And a lot of times you hear these podcasts and they're fabulous. And it's, I did this and I met Steve Jobs and I made $1 million and blah, blah, blah. And you know what? That's great. And I appreciate people who've done that, or people who inherited money from other people who were rich. But Angel and I haven't done that. We did not get like a big stream of income from some big corporation or anything like that. We are very much, just average people who wanted to do something more with their lives. And in my case, I began my media production company after being in television for like 25 plus years. I started it part-time for about 3 years before I jumped off the cliff, as I call it, and went full-time with it. And then, Angel, you've been working in customer service for 25 years. When did you think about taking the cupcake thing full-time, or however you want to say it?
Well, it wasn't, perfectly honest, it wasn't until John said, why aren't you doing this more regularly? When we met, I was just baking because before I met John, I didn't have anything else to do. So it was something I enjoyed, and I liked making things for people, and I would take in different treats or recipes to folks at work just because. And it was when John came into my life and he said, why are you not doing this as a
moneymaker?
Basically a moneymaker. Why you could make money at doing this. And I had done just a couple of odd jobs and had been, paid for it. And it was kind of like, really, you're going to pay me to do this? Okay. And so John kind of helped me take it to the quote unquote next level, if you will, make it more official.
Well, and so what we want to walk through here, and I don't know if this is probably a conversation Angel and I are going to be having with each other that we're going to let you eavesdrop in on. But I have a feeling, as a small business owner yourself, you've thought these things, you've discussed it maybe with a partner or a spouse, or maybe somebody, a friend, and you've had these questions, and we're going to kind of walk through them in a way that I think, I hope will be beneficial, because sometimes it's good to go back to the beginning when you start a business and say, this is what I had in mind, and go and revisit those values and revisit those goals and dreams. And so one of the first things that we talk about, and Angel and I, almost all of our friends that we have surrounding us now, are all people of vision. We're all people that really, vision is such an important thing. And so I think you have to have a vision of what your small business is going to be. And if you don't have a vision for it, you might say, well, it's cupcakes. What's the big vision? Well, the vision is what kind of cupcakes. And in my experience with media and branding and consulting small companies and big companies, the first thing I have to ask them is, well, what makes your business different? What makes your product different? And you have to have some type of vision. So in the case of Angel, let me ask you, with your cupcakes, obviously they taste great, and that's nothing to be overlooked, because you don't shortcut the way a lot of the grocery stores and people who just crank out cupcakes every day and make them plain. So when we talk about vision for you, with Angel's Custom Cupcakes, what is the vision? What do you see behind that? What makes you different?
That's a really good question, and I think that's where I struggle sometimes, is how am I different? I go to cupcake shops, and look to see what they have, and I try to decide what is different about what I do. And at times I don't find myself to be all that different. But I guess what I strive for is, I don't like to have a menu of these are the things I do. I prefer you tell me what you want. That was the whole point of custom. That was the whole reason when we were looking for a name, because what I had thought I wanted this to be named, if we went back to when I was 15 and wanted to open my own bakery, that name was taken. So it was like, well, what is it you do? I'm like, well, I try to customize it to what you want. And that's where we got the name Angel's Custom Cupcake. So it is about customization.
Well, and again, going back to another thing you're good at is customer service. You train a team of people who do customer service. And so customer service is in your blood. So because of your customer service training, you're able to extract what kind of cake do you want? Who's it for? What's the audience? What's the, how do you want it to taste? How important is it? How it tastes and so forth?
Yeah, I think my thing is what I get to talk to somebody about what they want. getting to really at the bottom line. Who are you feeding? First of all, are you feeding 5-year-olds who don't care? They just, it's about the color and how much icing is on it and whatever superhero or character it is. To, are you doing something for a group of, older folks or people of my age that, yes, it should look pretty, but how is it going to taste? Because they've eaten 1,000 cupcakes. They've had, 10,000 pieces of cake from different weddings, and they all seem to blend together. But when you're able to bring them or make them something that they will, that they don't forget, or they still remind you of later that you've made. I have something that I made. I took a Paula Deen recipe that I had at a grad party and made them one time.
Right.
And everybody still asks me, when are you going to make those again? Are you going to make those? Can you make those for us? Because they've created their own brand. They're now fondly referred to as lemon crack at work because somebody asked me if there was crack in them once because they couldn't stop eating them. So that's what I like is getting out of the person. What is the experience that you're trying to have? Is it about all the flavor, or is it the design?
And so, in a case of like branding or anything along that line, that's when you talk about Angel's Custom Cupcakes, and most people would say, well, it's the cupcakes is the big word. Well, I would actually argue custom is the big word with you. The vision for Ondo Media really was that I never had planned for Ondo Media to be some big 12-story production company here in Columbus, Ohio. There's already many very good production companies in Columbus, Ohio. I just wanted to be able to do somewhat what you did. I wanted to be a little bit of a niche kind of production company that companies would come to, enjoy working with, and stick with me. I wasn't looking for how can I grab the big company in Denver or the big agency in LA. I really wanted to be able to work one-on-one with more small to medium-sized businesses and be their production company that they couldn't afford to have. So it's always been a little bit of a vision thing for me, that I like doing work with nonprofits. I like doing work with faith-based organizations because it's an important part of my life. And the other thing too is just doing great commercial production and fun stuff and television. So it was that was the vision that kind of started this company off. So I think for those of you who have started a business and maybe you're frustrated or you're thinking about it, I think the first thing you should really sit down and do before you do anything, put it on a card, stick it in a desk drawer. What is it you want to do with your small business, and what will make it different? If you struggle with that, let me first advise you, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It probably means you need to go talk to a friend and see what they say, which kind of brings me to the second point we want to talk about is the support system. Now, we haven't gotten a lot into this, but I went through a difficult time in my life. I went through a divorce about 10 years ago, literally the same time I started my small business. And a lot of people encouraged me, but I know when Angel and I got married about 4 years later after meeting, there is nothing like having a support system when you have a partner, a spouse, whoever, close friend, even children that encourage you and say, this is something you need to do. And when there's times like we all have and say, you know what, I'm done. This is too much work. It's too much frustration. I'm not seeing the rewards that I want to, that you have that person that says, no, this is what you were meant to do. This is a vision you have. This is something you're supposed to do.
Well, it is important to have somebody in your corner, a cheerleader, if you will, to some degree, that's going to say, you can do this. And John was my cheerleader, for lack of a better word. No, he did not put on the skirt, but we have the pom-poms in the bedroom.
Yes.
He was, your stuff is good. And this is a man who doesn't eat sweets that is not his main go-to. If it's spicy or something.
It's a hot wing to set your head on fire. Boom, I'm on it, man.
There you go. But I don't make a hot wing cupcake.
You should.
I know.
About it.
We've chatted about it. I have a couple of ideas. But
yes.
he was the one who said this is something that you could do. And then having the right connections with the right people is what kind of got the ball rolling. And the fact that he does media and You know, we haven't done a video yet, but he has posted a couple of little snippets of me doing stuff. And I've tried on my own with my cell phone to make some things that are somewhat interesting. But again, it's so important that you have somebody that believes in your dream, if you will. And I've supported John in his dream, and I will continue to do that just as he continues to support mine.
If you don't have a supportive partner, then that is a pretty significant red flag that I would suggest you're going to have to deal with before jumping into a small business. Or if you have a small business that's not successful, and it's because you've got conflict with your partner over time, money, whatever it is, and you can't seem to make neutral ground work. I'm just going to say from my own experience, that's significant, and it needs to be something you worked out for. Thick skin is the third point that I want to make, and this is really, I think, for me at least, I'm a guy who somebody says, "Oh, you know what? I really love the video you did. Could you just change the font?" And I just like, "Are you kidding me? You didn't like the font I picked?" I take everything very personal. I've worked very hard on that. Angels actually helped me with that, because it's very hard when you're a creative person to sit back and have somebody say, "Oh no, what you did isn't what I want, and please change it." You take it very personally. You think, "Oh, you know." Talked about thick skin. I mean, you do this both sides of your job. I mean, you have customers in your customer service business that probably make you want to get a gun, and then you have I don't think you've ever had anybody really upset with a cupcake or anything that you've ever done. They're like, "Oh, this isn't what I wanted." That
No, I don't think, and I've never had anybody say anything about the product I provided. I think what I've gotten is it was so spectacular, and then I never hear from them again.
Yeah.
So, and then you see when they post birthdays and things
with somebody else's
stuff, or
yes.
something from Kroger, or something from whatever. And I say, well, that's fine. You know, it's, again, that was what they had to do. I mean, I did have a repeat customer recently who had not ordered a cake since her daughter's last party, and she came to me because they were so happy with the first one. Well, to run a small business, you can't wait 4 years for a client to come back. But when you tell somebody that you've done a really huge order for, they tell you that they're happy, you ask, and everybody at the event says, "Oh my God, they were amazing," and that they want to use you for these things that are coming up, and you never hear from them again, that makes you take pause.
Yeah.
Again, for me, that's what I start to freak out.
Did I overprice it? Did I?
What was it?
Yeah. And please understand when we say this, you know, and I think it applies to Angel and myself. I mean, I have hundreds of customers, hundreds of clients that I do videos for, and, you know, maybe one out of that 100, I find out maybe jumped to a competitor for whatever reason. And my first reaction is just like hers. What did I do wrong? Did I overcharge you? Did you not like this? Did they swoon in and buy you a big expensive dinner? And I didn't do that because I try to keep my production costs low to pass it on to the clients. So absolutely, I think you have to have a thick skin. And this is something else I'll throw in, and I have a feeling Angel's had this happen to her too. I have had customers who used me for a couple of projects, and then I call them up and, "Hey, we're coming up on a thing you want to start talking about? We've decided we're going to go with Company Z this time." "Oh, okay, sure, no problem," and they fade off, and then I get upset and like, "What did I do wrong?" And the next thing you know, oftentimes the next cycle comes around, I get a call, "Yeah, Company Z didn't work out at all. We need to get you back on the job." So don't be afraid the fact that you maybe lose a gig or you have a client that doesn't come back. It's not your fault. Or maybe they're going to try somebody else and they're not going to like that experience either. So don't crucify yourself just because you lost a client. And here's the thing that I'll be honest with too, and Angel's walked with me too. I've had a client, better part of most of my Ondo Media, very steady client, probably one of my single most largest client I have. And about a year ago, they began to fade off. And I kind of knew they were hiring some staff and they were using their staff, which is perfect. And I began to think, oh no, well, it was nothing personal. They just wanted to have people and staff. I've always been the guy who's been the solution for them. And so I keep in contact. Hey, hope everything's going well. If there's anything I can do to consult with you, that's great. But, wish you guys all the best. And, I harbor no, because here's the deal. I've always found this, at least in our walk, and there's a faith walk with Angel and myself too, is that typically when somebody moves out, another bigger client moves in. And that's exactly what happened. We literally, within a month, I picked up another client that quite honestly was larger. So again, just because a client drops you, don't feel bad. There's something better around the corner. Be looking for that. So have a thick skin. The last one we will point about is don't let money dictate your business. It's very easy when you're a small business, and I know, and I'll be the first, when I started this business, and I knew I was going to have to put stuff on credit cards. I had to buy cameras, I had to buy things, and I thought, it doesn't matter. In order to make money, I'm going to have to spend money, and I've told clients that for years. During that time, that I wasn't making a lot of money, I kept busy, and I built relationships with people who would end up being my clients. And I think that's a very important thing to look at is if you're sitting there today and you're like, you know what, we didn't have the income we thought, or we didn't do this. Okay, so what were the other benefits to your business? In my case, and I hate to say this, but when I'm not busy, and it doesn't happen that often, but when I find that I don't have, a lot of projects sitting on deck, that leaves me more time with my kids. That leaves me time to sit down and strategize. What should I do next? What are the trends in the industry? What should I be doing with Instagram? What should I be doing with marketing? So don't look at your downtime. If you're sitting in a valley right now in your business and you're thinking, I don't see anything coming on the horizon, don't panic. I understand you want to, but use that as that time that you can use to research your marketing, learn some things, pick up some books, pick up some audibles, and figure out if there's ways you can increase your experience. In the case, I know Angel's always baking and trying new things out, so she can say, "Hey, I do this."
I spend countless hours on YouTube and Instagram, and I mean, if I can, anything to watch and learn and see what's out there, what's trending. I hate to say it though. I mean, I'm so sick of seeing drip cakes. For those of you who bake, if I see another drip cake, I'm going to scream. There's now the new fun,
and they're fads.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's nothing that brings me more joy, and that's so silly, of just a beautiful chocolate cupcake or a, beautiful whatever. There's a lovely shop that we visited. We talked about, I think, in episode 2 or 3, called Sarah Sweets that's in Lima. And I got the pleasure of talking to Sarah. I follow her on Facebook, and her stuff is literally about flavors and about what people want. And every day she has something new, and it's like that. That's awesome. And yeah. So I watch her and I watch everybody just to, so I can, so I can be ready for that next client
Absolutely.
that wants something different. When they say, well, what do you make? And I'm like, well, what do you like? I always come back with that question. When they say, well, what do you do? Well, what do you like? So
that's good.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's the psychotherapy thing of cupcakes.
So again, and to go back through our points, look at your vision. What is the vision for your company? Have you gotten off that vision? What was your vision of the company? What was your vision when you started doing it? What was the joy that you had in this? And what happened to take your joy? And there's probably, if you sat down, I can't fix that, but I bet you if you sat down and looked at that, you'd think, oh, I know what happened. I took on too much work. I spent too much time doing this and that, and you'll figure it out. Support system. Again, can't stress it enough. You've got to have somebody beside yourself who is your wingman, wingwoman, whatever it is. You need to have somebody who's backing you up and saying, you got this, you got this. If you've got somebody who's negative, that's a big red flag. And if you have somebody who's just like, I don't care, that's just about as bad as a red flag. So I really encourage you to have that support system, because that would certainly be a red flag if you didn't. Thick skin. Don't be afraid when a client doesn't use you. Don't be afraid if a client comes back and says, well, we really thought we'd get more for our money. No, don't let that get to you. Subjectively run through it, think about it, see what happened. But if you come down to no, I didn't do anything wrong here, something better's coming around the corner. And then the other thing, don't let the money rule the business, in the sense that if you're having a down month, don't freak out. Stay the course, because you may have a better month next month. And don't forget, if you're like me, you've got kids, you've got other things with your time that are important to you, that's valuable too. So just because maybe you didn't have the $10,000 month you were expecting, well, did you have a $5,000 month, but you had some extra time with your kids? Roll that into that, because sometimes you've got to look back and say, you know what, there's days where I'm really busy. I'm like, I would pay $5,000 to have more time with my kids. So I think sometimes that's how it works out. So I don't know. Those are just the 4 thoughts we have for you today on Marketing Me and Cupcakes. If your business is successful and you've been blessed and it's rocking, please send us a note, subscribe to the podcast, and send us a note. John@ondomedia.com is my email address that we're using. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. Send us some notes on what your thoughts are on this, because I think this is a podcast that we're being very real and transparent about, and I think a lot of people are dealing with, because we listen to all these podcasts out here in podcast land. And I'll be honest with you, some of them I'm like, you don't live on the planet I do. God bless you that you're making millions and you're doing this amazing thing, but I've done the same amount of work you have, and it hasn't turned that profit for me. So there was probably something else that wasn't completely transparent about the podcast. I'm not saying people are lying, but I'm saying sometimes there's things I'm like, this doesn't quite add up to what I know is the real world.
Well, and it also could be you don't know what they lost.
True.
What did they lose?
And that's sometimes what we don't hear on these podcasts is, what did I lose? And I know a lot of people, and I'm not trying to be Mr. Downer here, a lot of people lost their families, lost relationship with their kids. Well, that's unacceptable in my world and in your world. We don't want that. So, but we hear about, I made millions and millions of dollars. Well, what was the cost? Are you really telling me on your how-to podcast the real cost? It's hard work. It is emotional work. I know both of us have had times where we don't even have to say anything to each other, and I can tell she's frustrated with maybe a slump in the business, or I get frustrated in a slump in the business. That's small business. But the benefits far outweigh that, and you got to keep reminding yourself of that there are benefits to it, and the biggest one is you get to do what I believe, whatever it is in your life that you love to do. And so whatever that dream is that you want to do, even if it's not a full-time gig, if it's just a side thing, or maybe it's something you're going to do to donate to a nonprofit, do that, because I believe that is completely important to our spirit, to our inner joy, to be able to do what we were designed to do.
I agree.
Again, subscribe to our podcast. It means so much to us, because when you subscribe, you're giving us a thumbs up. You're also telling podcast computer analytic thing that this is a good podcast. So we would love to have your vote on wherever platform you're listening to us. And again, John@ondomedia.com. Look for more updates. We got some great guests lined up in the upcoming episodes, so keep tuning in, because we love small business and we encourage you to keep living the dream.
Connect with John and Angel via Facebook and Instagram and let us know your thoughts. Marketing Media and Cupcakes is a production of Ondo Media.